welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to everybody watching online and on the patio right now. And then I love for all of us who got to be in the building today too. By the way, Easter this year I think is going to be off the charts incredible. And it really kicks off tonight. Tonight we have the opening of what's called Stations of the Cross. So if you're within driving distance, come. Tonight at 5 o'clock, it's called Meet the Artist. And all the artists will be here and telling you what the inspiration was for why they did each art piece for each station. And honestly, it's a time of contemplation. It's pretty moving. So I encourage you to come out and be a part of that tonight. And then throughout the week, you can just come and walk through and pray and seek the Lord. And so for us, it's a really good way to really begin to think about what Jesus did during the Passion Week on Good Friday, how he died on the cross, but even more, he's risen. By the way, isn't it exciting? He is risen. He is risen. So we're super excited for what's going to be happening that way. Then I do have to tell you, April the 19th. April the 19th is our special needs prom. And it's just an incredible time. It's heaven on earth here at Crossroads. Matter of fact, when Tim Tebow was here, he knows all about how effective we are at doing this prom. And he was just raving about it. So here's what I want to tell you. We right now can take in far more participants if we get more people to help. We especially need men. But right now, the minimum number of need, we'd love to get more, is 25 men. So guys, I want to have you think about it. How would you like to come and serve God and really experience heaven on earth? And then we need at least 5 women. So right now, I'd love for a bunch of you. If you're here and you're just a group of friends, say, hey, let's do this together. If you're a couple, I'd love for the wife right now to tell the husband you're going to do it. Or girlfriend, So yeah, if you're a girlfriend, get in practice. Tell them what to do. But we need you to text buddy to 77247. Text buddy to 77247. And we really need the help. We really need it. And so we'd love to have you be a part of that. So buddy to 77247. But anyway, happy St. Patrick's Day. Yeah, you know what? There are certain holidays that actually are Christian holidays. This is one. That might surprise you. But in about the year 480 to a little over 500 AD, St. Patrick lived and did incredible ministry. It all started, though, when he was kidnapped. He was kidnapped, and for 6 years, he was held in captivity against his will. But during those 6 years, St. Patrick gave his life to Christ. It was the turning point for him. He said it was the best thing that could have ever happened to him. And then he had a vision from God that allowed him to get free, to escape to freedom. And during what he did is then he began to study and seek the Lord in a very focused, intentional way. And then the Lord spoke to him and said, go back. Go back to the people that captured you. Go back to the people that imprisoned you. And so he went back to Ireland where all that occurred, and he began to lead lots of people to the Lord. Matter of fact, they're saying he led thousands to Christ, and he personally baptized thousands. Isn't that incredible? And so that's what we're celebrating today, and today would have been the day that he would have died in Ireland. But anyway, so if you're not wearing green today, you repent. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We're in a series where we're looking at 7 different questions that Jesus asked. Now, interestingly, the one today is a pretty powerful question. And we were sitting around in the area where we talk about this and study deep together about these kinds of questions and different studies we do. And then Craig had this great idea. Craig went on ChatGPT, the AI program, ChatGPT. It's an artificial intelligence program. And he asked this. He said, what if we were to think about a guy named Bob, and what would we say at his funeral? So he had AI write a eulogy for a guy named Bob. And I want you to hear it. It says, today we gather to honor the remarkable life of Bob, a person whose presence was as towering as his achievements. Bob lived a life that was rich in every sense of the word. Bob's journey was one of unparalleled success. Bob conquered the world of sports, leaving a legacy that will be remembered for generations. His prowess on the field was matched only by his determination and dedication to his craft. He inspired countless individuals to strive for greatness and push the boundaries of what was possible. Beyond Bob's athletic achievements, Bob amassed a wealth of success in business world. His astute vision and entrepreneurial spirit propelled him to summits of success, acquiring riches beyond measure. Yet amidst all the glitz and glamour, Bob remained grounded. In the digital realm, Bob was a trailblazer, accumulating legions of followers who looked up to him with admiration. His influence extended beyond the confines of the virtual world as Bob used his platform to spread positivity and inspire change. But perhaps Bob's greatest achievement was his kindness and compassion to all of us. Bob cared for his family and friends. Bob's multiple homes were not just symbols of his success, but also havens of warmth and hospitality, where friends and family were always welcomed with open arms. Today, as we bid farewell to Bob, and we celebrate a life to the fullest, a life marked by success, wealth, and influence, but above all by kindness and generosity, Bob may have left this world, but his legacy will continue to shine brightly, illuminating the path for others to follow. May Bob's spirit soar free forever, forever, remembered and cherished in our hearts. That's what AI wrote. If Bob were real, here's what would come next. Bob would go to hell. I'm not kidding. Bob would go to hell because he didn't answer the question right that Jesus asked. He didn't focus on what really mattered. What you just heard is a life that has come, gone, and never considered eternity. Bob would be in hell for all eternity. I don't want you to miss that. Bob did not get the question right. He did not come up with the correct answer. And Jesus warned about that because what did Jesus say? This is where we're going. What does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and what? Forfeits his soul. And you just read the life or heard the life of a supposed man who forfeited his soul for things that in the end would not matter. Jesus taught us and told us that hell is real. Jesus even told of people who were condemned to hell. A lot of times people don't think about that, but Jesus did not want us to miss the gravity of what could occur if we don't get this question right. So in Matthew 25, verse 30, Jesus said this. He's talking about a person who's going to go to hell, and he says, throw out the worthless slave into the outer darkness in a place where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Why? He didn't get it right. Later on, Jesus talked about a group of people who didn't get it right. And in Matthew 25, 41 and 42, it says, then he, Jesus, will also say to those on his left, depart from me, accursed ones, into the eternal fire, which has been prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. You did not live your life for the eternal. You did not live your life well. Jesus would die for us on the cross, and that would pave a way so that we would not have to undergo the sentence of hell for all eternity. But he warned that many, 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 actually, get ready for this, most would. More people will go to hell than will go to heaven. Jesus said this in Matthew 7, verse 13. Jesus said, you can enter God's kingdom only through the narrow gate. The highway to hell is broad, and its gate is wide for many who choose that way. By the way, did you notice what he said? You choose that way. You choose that way by not choosing the right way. Then he said the gateway to life is very narrow, and the road is difficult, and only a few find it. Only a few find their way to heaven. Jesus wants us to get the answer to the question right. That's why he asked the question. And so we're studying these 7 questions, but this one is eternal. This one is one I don't want you to miss. This one is one you can't let go of. So Jesus asked the question in this way in Matthew 16, verse 26. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? And your answer will determine your eternity. Don't miss the idea of your soul. Your soul. Most people are not aware they even have a soul. Isn't that interesting? They don't even think about it. They don't even take time to care for their soul. But the soul is all you have that will be eternal. The body you have is wasting away. And by the way, if you didn't know that, get my age and you'll know it's wasting away. The possessions you have one day will all be covered with dust and rust and eventually not be worth anything. And if you're not right in your relationship with Jesus, you will die and you will spend eternity somewhere that you don't want to spend eternity. And Jesus doesn't want you to go there. But by the way, don't miss this, not just you, your friends and family also. Eternity is waiting. Eternity is beckoning. And you and I can't miss that. Jesus tells of a man who went to hell and he was in torment and agony. And he finally cried out something in the midst of the agony. He cried out for his family to be warned not to go to this place. And in Luke 16:28, the man in hell said, "For I have 5 brothers, and I want him to warn them so they don't end up in this place of torment, eternal pain, eternal suffering." Why? Because you have a soul. And don't miss this, your soul is eternal. You need to know that. Your soul is eternal. When God created your soul, it is for all eternity. Your body will die, but your soul never will. So the question is, where will your soul be for all eternity? By the way, interestingly, Genesis 2 verse 7, it says, "The Lord God formed the man of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being." But the word is actually soul. Man became a living soul. And then we all inherit that as we live, as we're conceived, as we grow. So your soul's eternal. And you will live for eternity. And the question is where? In heaven with God or in hell, which was created for the devil and his angels. By the way, catch that. God created hell not for people, but for the devil and his angels. And the devil and his angels want as many in hell as they can, suffering with them. Matthew 25 verse 41 says, "Then he will turn to those on his left and say, 'Away with you, you cursed ones, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his demons.'" Jesus clearly tells us again that it's only a few who are going to go to eternity in heaven. In Luke 13, he brings out that again in a little bit different way, where Jesus says, "And someone said to him, 'Lord, are there just a few who are being saved?' And Jesus said to them, 'Strive to enter through the narrow door. For many, I tell you, will seek to enter and will not be able.'" Only a few will be saved. Only a few will be saved. Jesus warns of the dangers of forfeiting your soul, that eternal soul. There was a time that a man yelled out to Jesus to settle a family argument over money. And Jesus tells a parable that gets to the heart of the matter. He doesn't want this man, but each and every one of us not to miss. In Luke chapter 12, verses 15 to 21, Jesus said, "Beware and be on your guard against every form of greed. For not even when one has an abundance does his life consist of his possessions." Why? Because they're gone. They're here today and gone tomorrow. He said, don't focus on that. And he told them a parable saying, "The land of a rich man was very productive. And he began reasoning to himself, saying, 'What shall I do, since I have no place to store all my crops?' Then he said, 'This is what I will do. I will tear down my barns and build larger ones. And there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, you have many goods laid up for many years to come. Take your ease, eat, drink, and be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool, this very night your soul is required of you. And now who will own what you have prepared? So is the man who stores up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God.' By the way, it's interesting when you begin to study into the Greek, and the New Testament is written in Koine Greek, that the word soul there is literally, they are demanding your soul from you. When you read that, you go, okay, so who's demanding it? And I think it's the devil and the demons are demanding the souls of those who have not answered the question correctly, who have not gotten this important area of your life right. It's scary to know that God calls the man a fool. Why? Because a fool has said in his heart, there is no God. In Psalm 14, verse 1, look at those words with me. Then he said in his heart, the fool has said in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt. They have committed abominable deeds. There is no one who does good. Now, notice what's so intriguing about that. He didn't say they said in their head there is no heart. That would be an atheist. There are those who are atheists who in their head and heart don't believe there's a God. But there are far more people that actually it's only in their heart that they don't believe there's a God. In their head they'd say, I believe in God. They might even say, I'm a Christian. But none of that's true if it's not in your heart. None of it's true if it's not in your heart. What is the greatest commandment? To love the Lord your God with what? All your heart. And you got to have it all your heart, not some. And so we need to understand that the fool has said in his heart there is no God. Again, they may say with their mouth there is a God. They may say in their head there is a God. But the fool does not believe in his heart that there is a God. And he does not love God first, and he does not love God foremost, so he gets the answer to the question wrong. He can gain the whole world, but it doesn't matter when he forfeits his soul. And Jesus goes on to say, what would a man give in exchange for his soul? We can't miss that. Jesus tells on the judgment day that when he comes to judge every single person on earth, that many will say that they're his, and he'll say, no, you're not. Matthew 7:21, Jesus said, not everyone who calls out to me, Lord, Lord, not everyone who says I'm their Lord, in other words, I'm a Christian, will enter the kingdom of heaven. Only those who actually do the will of my Father will enter. On judgment day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, we prophesied in your name and cast out demons in your name and performed many miracles in your name. But I will reply, I never knew you. I never knew you. Get away from me, you who break God's laws. See, the key is, do you know him? Are you committed to him? Are you in a relationship with him that's real and true and vital? Or is it all just words that don't mean anything? And in your heart of hearts, you know you didn't answer this question correctly, and you'd forfeit your soul. Jesus warns us. He warns us. And by the way, James warns us too. James says this, you say you have faith, for you believe that there's one God? Good for you. But even the demons believe this, and they tremble in terror. How foolish. Can't you see faith without good deeds is useless? He said, you know what? A lot of people say they're Christians. A lot of people say they believe in God, but there's nothing in their life that shows it's true. He goes, the demons at least tremble. The demons at least know the fear of the Lord. And we need to understand that many, many people in the end, what they say they believe means nothing because it doesn't actually have any effect in their life. And when the end comes, their soul will be required of them because they did nothing in regards to their soul and what matters most. That is why Jesus asked this penetrating question. And let's look at it now as Jesus brings it out in Matthew 16:26. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man is going to come in his glory of his Father with his angels. Then he will repay every man according to their deeds. Those two verses actually gave birth to a book that was one of the best-selling books of all time in the United States called The Devil and Daniel Webster. In The Devil and Daniel Webster, it's the story of Jabez Stone, who is facing setback after setback. He becomes so defeated, he says, that he'll sell his soul for 2 cents. He walks in his barn and he actually screams out because he can't get anything right. I'd sell my soul for 2 cents. And then he felt something in his hand. And when he opened his hand, there were 2 cents there. And all of a sudden he looked and there was a man who called himself Scratch. It was actually the devil saying, do we have a deal? And he said, not for 2 cents. And then the devil said, what would you sell your soul for? And he said, I'll sell my soul for 7 years of good luck, for 7 years of success. And it starts happening. The money starts coming in. The prosperity, it becomes real for him. And the first thing he does, get ready for this, is start paying back his debts. Then the next thing he does is he begins to be generous with people around him. But none of that is enough to spare his soul. So when the 7 years is up, the devil comes to claim and demand his soul from him. He wants to collect. And when Jabez Stone begs for a way out, the devil laughs. Why? He sold his soul for 7 years of good luck, for 7 years of prosperity. The story is told that when Stephen Vincent Benet wrote the draft of the story, he wanted 2 of his best friends to read it to see if they thought it was any good. One was a pastor and the other was his attorney. And when they got together and he said, what did you think of the story I wrote? The attorney said this, I can't believe Jabez Stone sold his soul for so much. And the pastor said this, I can't believe the vast majority of people sell their souls for so little. What is it you'd sell your soul for? You know what? Right now, the devil doesn't need to make a deal with the vast majority of people because they've already sold it for nothing. For that which will become dust, that which will matter. Think about how many of your family and friends have sold their soul for nothing. They haven't even thought about it. And Jesus said, what would a man give in exchange for his soul? What good is it if you gain the whole world? What good is it if you gain the whole world and exchange that for your soul? I think it's so interesting. Jim Carrey said this. It's a quote that's pretty famous from Jim Carrey. He said it in 2005. He said, I think everybody should get rich and famous and have everything they've ever dreamed of so they can see that's not the answer. Do you realize how many people today are unhappy and have sold their soul for their unhappiness? How many people are depressed and have sold their soul for depression? How many people are in anxiety and fear and sold their soul for that? You know, it's so sad. It's so sad. We live in a country where people have sold their soul for houses that'll fall apart, cars that won't be any good in 5 years. And we need to understand it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. I've seen so many people who thought they were gaining that found out they lost everything that mattered. When Pam and I were doing Next Gen Ministry, not just once, but many, many times we sat with girls, high school girls, college girls, sometimes even junior high girls. And they would cry their eyes out as they told us that the reason they had sex with a guy was so he wouldn't break up with them. It devastated them. And I can't tell you again how many of them actually would say this, I feel like I'm dying inside. You know why? Because they sold their soul. By the way, don't miss that. Premarital sex is not a physical act. It's selling your soul. It's selling your soul. And they didn't know how to get it back. I sat with more than one man who made more money than they knew they could ever make and lost their family. Why? Because they sold their soul. I was with a man in Alaska, and he had the biggest house you could imagine, and it was empty. His wife got fed up and took the kids and left. He sold his soul. On one Christmas Eve, Pam and I were driving down the 91, and the Lord spoke to Pam and said, we need to go by this man's house in Anaheim Hills. And it was one of the biggest houses in the Anaheim Hills area. As we pulled up, it was dark. was quiet on Christmas Eve. We rang the doorbell, and he stood there half drunk with nothing. Thousands of square feet of an empty house and loneliness. He sold his soul. And sad to say, I don't know that he ever got it back. It is so sad to me when people sell their souls. I can't tell you how many parents have chosen to have a priority of sports over faith and sold their children's souls. Almost all of those kids don't make it to the pros. But they sold their soul hoping one day they would. The devil didn't need to give the deal. We need to understand how real this is. These situations have an underlying question that Jesus asked echoing through them. Know this, that when you sell your soul, something dies inside. Something dies inside. Some people can feel it, like the girls I told you about, but it's scarier when you don't feel it. It's scarier when you're numb to the pain and the death that you're starting to undergo. Paul warns about people who turn away from the Lord and they lose their ability to feel the depth of what is occurring. In 1 Timothy 4, verses 1 and 2, it's talking about the last days, our days. And it says, but the Spirit explicitly says that in the latter times, some will fall away from the faith, paying attention to deceitful spirits and doctrines of demons, the ones who demand your soul. By means of the hypocrisy of liars, seared in their own conscience as with a branding iron. The New Living translates it this way: their consciences are dead. They can't feel it. They can't even feel that they're dying inside. They're just dying, and the eternity that should be in them, the eternal life, is ebbing away. It reminds me of a disease that I knew a young man had who was in our ministry when I was in Anaheim. It was congenital insensitivity to pain and hydrosis, CIPA. He couldn't feel. He couldn't feel anything. He couldn't feel pain. Nothing that he touched, nothing that touched him. And it was a difficult disease to live with. Why? Because he would cut himself and be bleeding and not know it till he looked down and saw the blood. But the most dangerous is he would burn himself. And he wouldn't even know he was burning. His flesh would be rotting until he finally smelled it. And he'd jump back, and twice it caused him incredible harm that would never go away. Because he couldn't feel the pain of what was happening. So many people who have sold their soul can't feel the pain of what's happening anymore. And they're just numb. Numb to the things of God, numb to the moving of the Holy Spirit, numb to what matters most. That's why Jesus asked this question. But Jesus gives the answer. So let's look at this question in context. Matthew 16, verse 24, then Jesus said to his disciples, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it. Whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man is going to come in his glory, the glory of his Father, and with his angels, and then repay every man according to his deeds. Jesus said, you know what you got to do, though? You got to deny yourself. You got to take up the cross. You got to follow me. Because that's where life is found. That's where the love of God is realized. But notice Jesus said, if anyone wants to come after me, they must. They must do this. It's not an option. There's no other way to go to the Father. Jesus said this, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. So we've got to answer that question correctly. We've got to get it right. And a lot of you in this room already have. And you might say, Chuck, why are you preaching with passion? Because you know what? The majority of your friends and family don't know the answer. And you're the only way they're going to find out. You're the only one who's going to share it with them. You got to do it.